afternoon, depending on what part of the globe you're on and what time zone you're in. I'm your host, Skeptically Speaking.
And I'm your co-host, Sweet Pea from across the pond.
Thank you so much for tuning in and not tuning out. Thank you for joining us. If you want more independent media in your life, please consider supporting the show. Cash App, Venmo, or become a Patreon subscriber. Links are down in the description. Well, today I have festive drinks, but I'm not feeling festive. This is anything but the festive show, as opposed to yesterday and the day before, so we don't get a perfect score of 3 in a row. Today's show fortified and brought to you by Paul Masson Brandy. Pineapple, and yeah, that's it. And then the rest is Lipton Peach Iced Tea, no sugar. How are you, Sweet Pea?
I didn't blow that at you then. I'm doing all right. Yeah. How are you doing, Skeptically? I never blew that at you then. You didn't see. Nobody tell him. Shh.
Nobody saw a thing. Yeah, so today is it's going to be kind of a bizarre show, but it's going to be very familiar. You know, we really need to start thinking in terms of protecting kids more. Maybe we should rethink letting religious zealots adopt kids. You know. Or maybe we should prevent, I don't know. This story, the first story we're going to do involves Ohio, and then we're going to jump down to Florida. Ohio, a mother had 16 kids. And these kids were living in filth. Yeah. So. But that's what we have going on. You know, everyone is afraid of the nanny state. Everyone's afraid of the government encroachment. But when it comes to kids, is there any such thing as too much? Evidently, these stories show there's a huge lapse, and we probably don't have enough. We're going to do more listening than we are going to do reading.
Yapping.
Yeah, because I don't want to miss important details of this story. So we're going to let Prosecutor... We're going to let the news talk about it. I'm going to try to have I've got my speakers close to my mic, so we're going to get to listen to it. The first one is going to be pretty long. It's going to be about 20, 25 minutes. But let's just go ahead and listen to it. Let's see what it does. I will try to mute commercial. What's going on?
I'm trying to organize my brain squirrels to actually concentrate for a whole 20 minutes on one thing. So excuse me a second while I brace myself.
Gotcha. All right, let's go ahead and start. Here we go.
When you don't go to school, you can't be educated.
New details about the 16 Siders children and the paper trail that suggests someone was searching for them long before they were ever found.
So when we're talking reading and writing and education, we're talking a whole other level of expectations.
I have the explosive records that reveal this story began long before we thought it did. Plus, the big move made by the judge to stop people from talking about the case. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. We have a lot to discuss with the Siders case out of Ohio. A lot. We've uncovered some new details, and the judge has actually signed a gag order, preventing the people involved in the case on the prosecution side or the defense from talking about it. But first of all, I've been telling you that Children's Services in One Ohio County had been in touch with members of the Siders family. Well, now we have documents showing there was not only concern by Children's Services about the Sider children, but also grave concern on the part of the school district where the Siders children were supposed to attend school. And that concern goes back years. It's been exactly 2 weeks since deputies in Vinton County, Ohio, went to the home where Elizabeth Siders and her husband, Gary Siders Jr., were living. They went there to execute a search warrant as they investigated a crime. What deputies and Ohio BCI agents found was not what they were expecting. They said they found 16 children ranging in age from 1.5 to 18 inside the home on Omer Street. The children, according to the state attorney general, were not in good shape.
That right now, some of these children couldn't even speak. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking. This is very. It was terrible. I mean, they really it looked like almost feral animals. It was terrible. So when we're talking reading and writing and education, we're talking a whole nother level of expectations here. Like it's hard enough just to get these kids to be able to the 18-year-old can't spell it.
Since that press conference, we've learned that some of the older children have social media accounts, but just how much they can spell and write remains a question.
Just to give you a brief update. So in Ohio, 16 kids were removed from one house. And right now they're going into details about what life was like for those kids. Obviously they can't do a lot as far as talk about the case, but they can give certain details when they were first initially found. So, and this was truly a house of horrors.
Thankfully, the children have all been released from the hospital. They're with foster families. The house on Omer Street remains taped off by crime scene tape. The conditions inside have been described as something you wouldn't even see in a third world country. Videos circulating online show the filth in the house. The children were kept in a 12 by 12 room, according to the sheriff.
As I was saying, most of our livestock was kept in better conditions than the children. It was extreme.
Can you imagine that? Livestock, barnyard animals treated better than these children. I mean, what are we doing at this point?
Really high presence, I'm sure, of bacterial and human feces. It's just a disgusting scene.
Can I ask the both of you, what did you feel like long? They're not necessarily what it looked like in the description, but what was going through your mind?
So it was disgusting, even where the kids weren't. I would think it's typical. Most law enforcement have experience with homes in a similar fashion. A large number of people, though, the children were kept in a roughly 12 by 12 area. It seems like it's where they spent the most of the last 4 years. And that's what it looks like. In a weird way, you're hit with most two emotions. There is joy when we realize that we're about to change 60 lives for the better. But you're also it's hard.
4 Siders family members, Gary Siders Sr. and his wife Christina Lynn Siders, along with their son Gary Jr. and his wife Elizabeth Siders, face 16 counts of child endangering. They've all pleaded not guilty to the charges. Gary Sr. has been released from jail and placed in a hospital after he fell and a more serious condition was discovered. The last we heard, he was still in the hospital. The Vinton County prosecutor says the children were found in the house, but that the family was not from Vinton County.
I want to stress that our focus right now is on the safety of the children. These kids are being evaluated medically, and we're trying to get them placed, and that is our primary concern right at this point. I also want to stress this is not conduct that is acceptable in Vinton County. These individuals were not from Vinton County. This is not appropriate and certainly is not reflective of the Vinton County values.
Now, I've told you that the family was originally from Gallia County. Gallia is the county south of Vinton, and records show the family moved to Vinton County about 4 years ago. And there was likely a reason for that move. The puzzle pieces here, they're fitting together. They are painting the picture. It's becoming very clear. I've been telling you for the last week. The Children's Services had been looking into the Siders family. That look at them started in Gallia County back in 2021. The juvenile court in Gallia County went looking for the Siders after the older children didn't show up for school. The Siders' home at that time was on Honeysuckle Drive in Cheshire. That's the address listed on the court documents. These records show that in October 2021, complaints had been filed against Elizabeth and Gary Siders because 6 of their children were considered truant, meaning they were chronically absent from school. The complaint states the child's name, which we have blacked out. Then it states that Gary and Elizabeth have failed to cause said child to attend some school or class as required by law. The child has been absent from school without legitimate excuse for the entire 2021-2022 academic year to present an amount in excess of 72 hours for the school year, and as such is thereby a habitual truant.
Newly
Now,
released
this
body
truancy
cam
complaint is for
Saw,
6 of the
down
16
here
Siders' children.
today.
Of course, some weren't even born yet. The oldest at that time would have been 13. In the state of Ohio, it's illegal to not send your children to school. Parents have a duty.
1 second. Please hold.
To ensure their child is in school. The statute states that parents whose children are determined to be habitually truant and do not get their kids to school can face fines or even child neglect charges. Eventually, the complaints were terminated in January of 2022. A document states the court finds that Elizabeth Siders is unable to be served and the whereabouts of Elizabeth Siders are unknown to the court. Therefore, it is hereby the order of the court that the above matter be terminated until the availability of Elizabeth Siders. The same document was filed for Gary Jr., the named father of the children. The court couldn't find Gary and Elizabeth or the children. The children had to have been registered for school, but the school district said they never attended, not even for a day, it would seem. That raises the question, had the Siders already moved in 2021? Were they still in Gallia County or had they already moved to Vinton County? I have found records showing that Elizabeth had a P.O. box in Hamden as early as 2020, and she and her family are listed as living in this house on Main Street in Hamden before they moved a short distance away to the home on Omer Street. People have been drawn to that house. I met several there over the weekend. They don't understand how something like this could happen.
Just curious about this whole situation because how can a whole family live like that and no one know it? I wanted to see like how close were neighbors. Usually in small towns, neighbors are.
Okay, if you're not sure how this happens, I don't know how people realize how houses work. Okay? Unless you're able to see through walls, you're not going to be able to know what's going on in that home. If the kids do not leave said house, how the fuck are you going to know what's going on? You know? And even then, even if they did leave the house for whatever reason, you're not going to be able to know what's going on just by a glance or two. So people just want to be, they just want to talk in front of a camera just to sound smart. It's like sometimes, oh God, whatever.
Friendly with each other, so how would you not know what's going on?
You live a couple counties away, right?
Yes, in Lawrence County.
So you live in Lawrence County. You came out here to see what was going on. This is out in the southeastern part of the state. Is it common for people to live like this with 16 children, filth, that you are aware of?
I mean, there are definitely places in each county, I'm sure, that have large families that have trouble taking care of everybody. That CPS doesn't know about and doesn't step in. And I think every county probably has some of that going on.
Yeah. So it's just, Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is what happens when you don't have uh readily over the counter birth control. You know, when you have, and we're going to find out more as this case unfolds what's going on. But Ohio is another one of those states where it is very, very hard to get reproductive services.
Neighbors help take care of you, though. No, that's the best thing about living in a small town. Everybody knows everybody. So how would you not know that's going on?
As the investigation into the Siders continues and the prosecutor prepares the case for grand jury, the case is catching the eye of legislators in the state's capital.
On June 30th in Benton County, we had an unprecedented situation where 16 children at one home at one time were added to the temporary custody of that county, more than doubling the number of children in needing care in that community. We are requesting $1 million in emergency resources to be made available specifically for the care of these children. I've been doing this in one capacity or another for 40 years. I've never seen anything like this. This is to have kids that would be off the radar. A child off the radar is troubling enough. 16 kids in one family in one household. To be off the radar is something.
How many kids is too many kids? Here's the thing. Can you legally stop somebody from having kid after kid after kid after kid? You know? Here's the thing. I don't think she gave birth at home. She went to a hospital. There is a paper trail.
That I've just not seen.
Ohio's controlling board approved sending $1 million to the Department of Youth and Children in Southeast Ohio to help care for the Siders' children. That amount could just be a drop in the bucket, though.
Wow.
These kids are safe. They are being cared for. They are receiving treatments. And we expect there to be a lot more services that these children will need to address the traumas that they've received. And some of these things they'll probably be dealing with for life.
So to discuss all of these new revelations, I want to bring in Ron O'Brien. He is the former elected prosecutor of Franklin County, Ohio. That's the state's capital. Columbus is in Franklin County. Ron, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, very glad to.
So, Ron, what is your reaction to the fact that we have these truancy complaints that have come to light out of Gallia County? We knew the family was originally from Gallia County. But back in 2021, October of 2021, the school district's going to court and saying these kids haven't been to school all year long, and then they can't track the parents down or the kids down.
Yes, and at least that would be the proper step to take when the school district or children's services learn that there are children not attending school at all. Usually, the truancy cases we've had over the years are children that are excessively truant, and there's a statutory definition on different levels of absences, but it's somewhat rare to have children not at all going to school, and that's what happened here. And when they learned about it, apparently they filed a complaint in the Gallia County Court, but like any other court document, you have to get service, and they couldn't get service, is what I understand was the problem, number one. And number two, when they did try and find them, they were unable to find them either at different locations.
These kids in October of 2021, according to the court document, they hadn't been to school all year at all. So that's quite a long time. And in order to be truant, you would first have to be registered as a student in the school district, correct?
Yes, you'd have to register in the school district and be assigned to a specific school and then attend. And if they are at least excessively late, tardy, or truant, then there's a truancy officer that is to
Adobe Acrobat Studio is all new. What can PDF?
Yeah, so half of these kids, I guarantee, I wonder if even half of these kids saw the inside of a school.
Apparently, in trying to contact them, they weren't able to do so, and that's why they filed the complaint.
You know, truancy, many things come with that. The kids can be in danger. In this case, the prosecutors would say these kids were definitely in danger. Their parents are now facing child endangering charges. Um, it appears from everything we can see, just from the outside looking in, that there was not an effort, not certainly not in Benton County, to send these children to school, which is confounding to me because sending your kids to school if you're low income, a lot of times the schools have services for the kids. A lot of times that's where kids get their meals. It's sad to say, but it's true.
No, that's exactly right. And at least I started actually a truancy program, even though you would think a district attorney would not focus on truancy. But I was finding that the people who were 15, 16, and 17, we were binding over for trial as an adult, that their first contact was a truancy charge. Whether it was a robbery, a burglary, or a homicide, their first contact with the court was truancy. And my thought process was, if we can get them into school and get them graduated, that will help both with employment. And I believed correctly that it would prevent them from starting down that road of crime. But you have to go through a registration process and have it approved by the school district and others that you're going to homeschool the children, and that wasn't done either. Now, mom had made claim that they were homeschooling him, but you can't just say under Ohio law, I'm homeschooling him. I didn't contact the school district, and I didn't register the necessary.
Here's the thing I have against homeschooling is you're leaving the teaching of children to people who are unqualified to teach anybody anything. Now, the other flip side of that coin is there are some schools that are so underfunded that the kids have special needs and they need to be homeschooled because that's the only way they're going to get any sort of education at all. So it is a double-edged sword, and it's really hard to come down on one side or to other. I really don't know. But coming from my background, I would say absolutely not. Because a lot homeschooling really got big with Christians, fundamentalist Christians who believed that public school was corrupting their kids and leading them astray and blah, 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 blah. These are the kind of people that should not be teaching anybody's kids anything. But here we are. Because, freedom. Screwing kids up for life is what we're doing.
Requirements. So at least it was completely AWOL from the system, either through homeschooling or otherwise.
I want to go back to what you were saying about the importance of showing up in school and that link that you found between juveniles committing crimes and being truant. That's often the first step on their way to into the juvenile criminal justice system. I know that when I worked in local news in Cincinnati, a lot of the school districts formed teams. At least a few of them did that I was aware of, where they would go visit the child's home, just knock on the door if they weren't attending school or if they had a couple of days absences, and just say, "Hey, is there anything you need? Do you need some help? Is everything okay?" And it was like a social worker, some member of the school district, and they did this because it is so important, and often the schools are the first.
I want to give you just a small caption, just a small smidgen of what these kids were dealing with. This is just one. I'm about ready to dry heave. This is what the inside of that house looks like. This is just one picture. And inside this debris is just filth, feces, human waste, garbage of all sort. I mean, it is just despicable. Now, the oldest child, get this, 18 years of age, developmentally disabled, unable to even write her own name. How anybody related to these kids could allow this to go on. These people need to be kept away from children at all. These are fucking monsters. This is worse than the third world, is what this is. Young victims confined to a cramped space at their home in the small village of Hamden. The mother, the monster mother, wants to be reunited with her children. We'll just call them Monster 2. Because why not? Nasty cretins, man. Forced to live in that shit. By the way, here's the father and grandfather. Or actually, yeah, father and grandfather. So everybody is living in this garbage. Everybody's living in this filth. And I guess grandpapa is in the hospital. Has been since his arrest. Here's the mother and grandmama. She looks better than she did for her mugshot, I'll tell you that. Mom's hair, grandma's hair it was just nasty. And she wants to be it's like, and they've all pled not guilty, by the way. They don't think they've done anything wrong. This is the twisted mindset. This is gross. This is disgusting. This is blech. How? But a lot of details we're going to have to wait. We're going to have to watch the space. We're going to have to wait until all shall be revealed, that sort of thing. It's just nasty. All right, let's continue.
Ones to notice that something is going wrong with the children, whether it's neglect, abuse, or other issues.
No, that's exactly right. And at least what we found, and I had that truancy program, and it did the same kinds of things. And sometimes we found that mom and dad or a single parent went to work early in the morning and buying an alarm clock for the children so that they could get up and get out.
Yeah, there we go. This is probably a better mugshot. This is how terrible they looked when they were first picked up. We'll call them Monster 3. This just ugh. These people need to be locked up forever. But, and I wonder, I just wonder. I don't think there's anything wrong with these adults. Well, hold on. Let me back up. There's definitely something wrong with the adults. Okay. Now, she looks like she's been forced to shower and forced to clean up in this picture. But now, this one here, how in the world could they not be affected by the deplorable living conditions? And it looks like they were. I mean, I can imagine what the kids look like, and we'll probably never see pictures of their kids unless some of them decide to write a memoir. Good God.
So on our graphic, you see the three girls up the top.
I see them.
They are the victims. They are the survivors. I don't have any pictures of the younger kids. They have not been released for legal reasons because they are minors. But these are the three older girls.
I'm guessing the one on the far left is 18, and then
Yeah.
God damn. Yeah. I just can't imagine. And you know what's sad is these poor kids, once you've been in that environment, and if this is all you know, you think this is normal. Oh, fucking God.
From the house at the school bus stop was solving the problem of truancy. Sometimes you had parents that were drug abusers, and we would try and get them into a drug treatment program, and that was the source of the problem. Other times, parents didn't really value education and the key to the future for the children, and some educational opportunities, and emphasizing to the parents that the kids really needed to be in school solve the problem. So you have to take a proactive effort, as apparently they did in Cincinnati, and we did back in those days now.
This case, the children not being in school is a red flag enough. That's a major red flag right there. But Ron, have you ever in your career, your lengthy career as a prosecutor, seen a family that just simply doesn't send their children to school, and just squirrels them away? It appears they just have the kids, according to what the prosecutors have said, hidden in the house. I don't know if I've ever heard of such a thing.
Well, I
They have
would
nothing
have
to
to
do
say
with
that
what we're talking
I've
about.
seen it before, but not with 16 kids. And that's
Really?
what's amazing to me in this entire case, that people
Okay,
in
my question
Gallia
is,
County, people in
are
Vinton
those
County,
girls and
neighbors,
are they
people at the gas
related
station, grocery store, and whatever, no
to
one in a
anything we're
small
talking
village
about
of only
today?
200 was aware that there were 16 kids behind the closed doors of that home. And that just kind of boggles your mind. And on top of which, this issue of a schooling, issue of the small facility where they were being kept, it just is amazing as the facts unfold.
What do you think? I'm asking you to
Because they
speculate
were
a little bit,
referring
but
to
what
a
do you think was
history.
at the root of this? Because I went out to the neighborhood over the weekend. You can't get in the house. The crime scene tape is still up, obviously. You can't go in there anyway, but there have been some images leaked online, and it's a mess. It's not even a mess. That's not even an appropriate term. It's like a mess on steroids times 50, from what we've seen online. What on earth is going on that you've got kids and even adults living in this type of environment?
It just is, I have seen it with several children, but not as bad.
Yeah, there's another picture of the backyard. The backyard is just full of junk, and the backyard looks cleaner than the inside of the house. How the fuck does that happen? By the way, the kids that are in the graphic up here,
Yeah.
so these girls do not have anything to do with the current case we're talking about.
No.
These are
No.
so
No.
Ohio has a long history of this sort of thing. So these are examples of other kids who have been rescued in the past.
Yeah,
So
these 3 girls were actually kidnapped victims in another case, and they were held captive for 10 years in a Ohio home. They have been freed, and the man responsible for kidnapping and raping them is currently in prison. And unfortunately, the newspaper that I was looking into, the 16 kids that were held captive, for some reason they were using these girls' pictures, and I should have
that's okay.
done
Don't worry
more
about it.
research.
Yep. Don't worry about it. We just
So
explained it.
that is
That's
my
good.
bad.
All right, let's continue.
As it's been described by the authorities in Vinton County and the Attorney General's office. And secondly, it's just, as they said, a horrific kind of circumstance. And it's just, as I say, boggles my mind how it escaped detection up till this point in time, which actually they wouldn't have found it, but for there was some criminal charges filed on the younger siders that they were investigating and went out there with a search warrant.
Yeah, and it's our understanding that the search warrant is separate from the public indecency charges, and it's the search warrant was not related to the abuse. We're still kind of digging around and poking around on that a little more because they won't tell us what the search warrant was for. But it is confounding that they were able to keep these kids hidden for so long. Do you think, in your view, that there will be more charges other than the child endangering charges filed against people in this family? I mean, it hasn't gone to grand jury yet, but it will.
I have to think that there will be more charges that will arise from this. And again, that is not a whole lot more than speculation based on the facts that are known now. And it just seems to me that there had to have been issues within the home, between the children, between the parents, with the grandparents. But as I say, that's not based on a specific fact. It's only an opinion based on what we do know and what I've seen over
They
the
had
years.
a cat in that
And
house.
now the state legislature is sending $1 million down there to Child Protective Services. It's the Department of Youth and Children now. I mean, $1 million, it's good, it'll help. But some lawmakers were voicing concerns that the Children's Services was just not funded properly for a long time.
Adobe Acrobat
Well,
Studio.
yeah, it's Ohio. It's Ohio. Of course, the Child Protective Services isn't funded properly because the maniacs that run Ohio legislature have been attacking CPS as a Democrat ploy to disrupt the family unit and blah 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 blah. Even though they know the truth, they have to placate their voter base. And so, wow, they just coughed up $1 million, no problem. Now, I find it hard to believe that $1 million, I mean, I guess if you're going to include the amount of personnel that are going, okay. So if you include the personnel that are going to be involved, that are going to be dealing with these kids, they're going to have to be paid salaries. You're going to have to get, I mean, just the materials alone to deal with this. Okay, I can kind of see how that $1 million can go pretty fast. But yeah, this is what happens when you cut funding to much needed programs. You fucking Republican idiots.
Help, but some lawmakers were voicing concerns that the children's services was just not funded properly for a long time. Is more funding really the issue here? If you're sending people out and they go to an address and they simply can't find the people.
Well, yes, it is a problem. If you're not funding them properly, you cannot hire competent personnel to be able to do that. It's not just a question of hiring a temp to go out and knock on a door. You need competent people that know what to look for. They know the signs. They know, hey, there's definitely abuse going on here. Oh, we probably need to put an asterisk next to this address. I'm very annoyed with that last question. I'll replay it.
Funded properly for a long time. Is more funding really the issue here? If you're sending people out and they go to an address and they simply can't find the people.
Well,
Yeah, you need more funding to have resources to be able to find the people. Yes, more funding would actually help in that endeavor. Because if you don't have the personnel, it doesn't matter what fancy gadgets you have, you need human bodies operating them. Yes, it is a matter of funding. The funding is the end all be all. Without funding, that is level one. That is your foundation. I mean, again, you can have all the funding in the world and still screw it up if you have incompetent people running the establishment. Yes. But you can have competent people, terrible funding, and you're literally hampering their job. You're tying their hands behind their back and saying, why aren't you doing your job?
I would tell you this, that historically,
It cuts both ways is what I'm saying.
there are 88 counties in Ohio, as you know, and Vinton County is always at the bottom of the list on being the poorest county in Ohio. So at least the tax base based on that it would be low. And secondly, I would think that their primary goals would be the criminal justice kind of issues, the sheriff's office and the courts. And I don't know anything more than that they're a poor county, and therefore they probably have budgetary restraints. But certainly, somehow, somewhere, these folks and their children, if
tax the billionaires properly, and this issue becomes a non-issue overnight.
Not at a hospital that has delivered 10 kids over a period of a few years, would maybe have even a mandatory duty to report the circumstances and situation to the authorities for them to look at it. Obviously, in Gallia County, it came to their attention by virtue of the lack of attendance, and that's 5 years ago. So within the last 5 years, somebody somewhere should have been looking to the circumstances of these children and their parents.
And that's a question I've been raising. If you go to the hospital and you have baby after baby after baby after baby, and you're not employed, it appears they're not employed. Like, does the hospital have a duty to say, like, how are you taking care of these kids?
Well, at least I think it's a legitimate question to ask, and I got to think they were on some kind of support, whether it's food stamps
Right.
or otherwise, and so you have to register for that at Jobs and Family Services. So at least somewhere along the line, and maybe, and I think it's true in some of the smaller counties, people are less.
Ohio government is not that. I tell you, they are absolute shit. The fact they are incompetent to the 12th power. To tell me, and he brought up an excellent point. They were most definitely on welfare. You got to be able to register. I mean, hello? to feed all those kids, you've got to have paperwork. Where's the Ohio government? What are they doing? Again, this is what happens when you have incompetent people running the government and it's underfunded at the same time. And I'll tell you this, I guarantee you that the big states, California, New York, Illinois, Vermont, all of those big states, and there are others, the federal dollars that are collected in taxes go to places like Ohio. They go to places like Iowa. They go to places like Texas. Because these states do not tax their millionaires like they should. So it's up to the blue states to carry the burden. And that is what's subsidizing these lives.
It's nosy, if you want to call that, about the papers, and intentionally say what's, it's not my business. But here, with 16 kids, and there were two others, as you know, that were born that died shortly after. They were conjoined twins. That somewhere having 18 kids over 18 years. Now there were multiple births and twins, but still, that would cause somebody with that information, be it hospitals, OBGYNs, medical doctors that looked at a mom, prenatal, all those kind of factors fit into it.
Yeah, it's confounding, this whole thing. And when I was in town over the weekend, somebody told me they would come into the Dollar General store and pay with, they called it a food card, which that's like that EBT card. The question is, who was that card registered to? And we're still trying to get to the bottom of that. Right now, the prosecutor has said, at least as of last week, he said that the grandparents were the only ones that he was aware of who were receiving benefits. But we're going to continue to keep digging into that. I've put some feelers out on that with the Department of Children and Youth, and we're waiting to hear back. So, Ron O'Brien, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been great having you.
Talk with you. Look forward to watching your continued reporting on this very terrible circumstance.
Thank you. Now let's discuss this gag order signed by Judge Rogers. The attorney for Gary Siders Jr. filed a motion asking for a gag order, citing the comments made by Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson that I played for you earlier. Attorney R. Lee Roberts said the comments were putting his client and other defendants at risk of not receiving a fair trial. The judge signed the order, prohibiting the sheriff, attorney general, or prosecutor from making statements or releasing information about the case or the evidence. So stay tuned for more on that. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.
Yeah. So, yeah, basically it's watch the space is what this is. This is just gross. Gross. Absolutely gross. So with that being said, we have another story of what would be described as the perfect Christian family. Let's go ahead and play that. Hopefully this plays right. So to give you some preliminary, the perfect Christian family tortured a foster child. The Florida prosecutor alleges a seemingly perfect Christian family abused their foster daughter for years, facing new charges related to their biological children. Oh shit. So not only were they definitely torturing this foster child, I think it also may allegedly carried over into their biological children. Meaning they abused not only this foster child, but they abused their own kids as well. Because, of course they did.
The circumstances of the offense are allegedly egregious.
New trouble for a fire lieutenant and his wife accused of abusing a foster child. There are new charges and more allegations involving their own children. But one of their attorneys says the facts are on the parents' side. I'll explain. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. From the outside looking in, Joel and Jennifer Conert look like the perfect parents in a large family. Joel was a fire lieutenant at the Broward Sheriff's Fire Rescue. Jennifer was a stay-at-home mom. The couple had 5 biological children.
Wow.
I'll explain. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Jennifer Conert looked like the perfect parents in a large family. Joel was a fire lieutenant at the Broward Sheriff's Fire Rescue. Jennifer was a stay-at-home mom. The couple had 5 biological children, and they were also fostering a child, a girl, from the time she was a baby until she was 12 years old. On Facebook, the Conerts looked picture perfect, but the state attorney in Broward County says there was something awful going on behind the photos and behind closed doors. The claim? The 12-year-old girl the Conerts had fostered since she was a baby was being singled out in the home and mistreated. The girl, according to the prosecutor, was being tortured. A detective wrote in a probable cause affidavit on February 11th, 2026, a Department of Children and Families investigator responded to the resource officer regarding allegations that blank was locked in her bedroom at night due to claims that she wandered the house and took items from the family members. The intake further indicated that during this period, the child did not have access to a bathroom, resulting in her urinating on the floor and being forced to clean it the following morning. The intake also noted that the child was required to write Bible verses as a form of punishment. So this is just the beginning of what the state attorney says was torture. Investigators with Children's Services interviewed the girl twice over the span of 2 days. They said things the girl told them raised serious concerns. The investigator wrote, during these interviews, the child disclosed that for approximately 2 to 3 years, she had been locked in her bedroom overnight and at times during the day. She stated that while confined overnight, she urinates on herself and at times defecates on herself due to lack of access to a bathroom. The child reported that in the morning she is required to bathe outside in the backyard while wearing a bathing suit despite inadequate weather conditions. Investigators said they also spoke with the biological children of the Conerts. A detective wrote, I interviewed all of the children residing in the home who are the biological children of Jennifer and Joel. These children confirmed that the child is locked in her room overnight, urinates and defecates on herself, and is required to bathe outside and wash her clothing. All siblings advised that they are not subjected to that type of punishment. They reported that the child spent a majority of her time isolated in her room, writing proverbs, and is rarely allowed to participate in normal family activities such as eating meals and playing with siblings. So investigators say the Conerts' biological children told them the girl was being isolated and kept in her room where she's forced to write proverbs. The investigators then turned their attention to the Conerts. The affidavit states Jennifer agreed to speak with me and was advised of the DCF allegations. Jennifer admitted to locking the child in her room overnight and acknowledged that the child has been urinating and defecating on herself for approximately 2 to 3 years. Jennifer confirmed that the child is required to write proverbs as punishment and that she is required to bathe and wash her clothing outside with limited access to indoor facilities. Jennifer acknowledged that these practices were unusual. Jennifer also stated that the victim would not thrive in her care and is willing to turn her back over to the state of Florida, although Jennifer and Joel have been her caretaker since she was 2 months old. Then investigators said they went and spoke with Joel Conert. The detective wrote in the affidavit during the interview, Joel acknowledged that there were safety concerns associated with the victim's bedroom door and window being secured in a manner that restricted her ability to exit. This practice is particularly concerning, and given Joel's professional background, where he would reasonably be expected to recognize the inherent safety risk is associated with restricting a child's ability to exit a room during an emergency. All of this information from the children and Joel and Jennifer formed the basis for the initial aggravated child abuse charge. But the investigation and review by prosecutors continued. And Jennifer and Joel, they were back in court this week, and they now face additional charges of child neglect and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The delinquency of a minor charge states that a child did observe and or was encouraged to participate in the physical, mental, and or emotional abuse of a sibling. So the Conerts are now accused of encouraging their own children to take part in the abuse.
Okay, so that's where that comes in. So they may not have been physically abusing their own kids, but they were psychologically torturing their kids by making them participate in the abuse of this foster child.
Of their foster sibling.
These where they confirmed the information that was provided by the victim child as to the restrictions on her eating,
Want a trial today?
restrictions on her
Good luck.
movement, her being locked in her bedroom, and various other details. And that is why the additional counts for additional victims have been added as well. So there is a medical portion to this that has been uncovered since the original arrest, and there has been evidence of it being the other minor children in the household being aware and exposed to the abuse of their siblings.
Jennifer Connert's lawyer asked that she be allowed to remain free on bond.
I want to call the court's attention to that. What I'm requesting is, my client is no fire record. She had two
No.
children at home.
No.
There is a pending,
No. Keep her in jail. She is a clear and present danger. Oh, the fuck not. These are the kind of people you keep in jail until trial. These people should not be allowed anywhere near a child. What the fuck are we doing here?
case with the children, which is now, there's an agreement that's supposed to be set.
This is an independency.
Correct.
What?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I want to call attention to the court that, with no prior record, my client at the magistrate here, the public defender at that time asked for a $15,000 bond on first count. The state of Florida asked for a $50,000 bond. The magistrate on their own required a $100,000 bond. Okay, so there's a very large bond amount in this case already.
Jennifer's attorney offered a possible defense claiming the foster child may have been violent.
I would suggest to the court that my client be placed on pretrial release on the other counts. I don't believe there is a necessity for an ankle monitor. They haven't been on an ankle monitor to this point, and they've been perfectly law-abiding and follow all the rules as defined. And I would also just review something the prosecutor said. The reason that the biological
I'm getting
children
sick
don't have
listening to this
contact,
lawyer.
with the alleged victim in this case because they were threatened to be stabbed by it. So there's actually a valid factual reason why that is not the influence they've made that somehow the parents are not influencing their children not with contact with the child. That is not the case. The evidence will be borne out there.
Jennifer Conert testified briefly about her current circumstances. It's difficult to hear, so we put some subtitles on it.
How many hours in the agreement?
The magistrate allowed Jennifer Conert to remain free on bail.
The circumstances of the offense are allegedly egregious. Penalty upon conviction and the weight of the evidence against the defendant in this matter weighs heavy on this court. However, the defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty at trial. And under the circumstances, the penalty on count 1 is 30 years in prison, count 2, 15 years in prison, and individual counts of 5 years, individual terms of 5 years in prison on counts 3 to 6. As to the defendant's family ties, in this case, I have heard limited information as to that. However, I do understand that there are 4 minor children, biological children, and 1 adopted child who is the alleged victim in this case. Linked to residents and community.
Adobe Acrobat Studio is all new. What can PDFs?
So these fucking stupid ads for AI. God damn. Fuck off.
To employment history, our Mr. Conert is a firefighter. I understand currently on restricted leave with the Department of Coral Springs. As to financial resources, limited. Mental condition, not a factor. Prior convictions, not a factor. Previous financial board prosecution, no such information provided. Failure to appear at board proceedings, clearly that is not the case. Mr. Conert has been appearing at the proceeding. Danger to the defense releases to opposes the community. This particular factor, this court does have concern as to the potential influence that parents can have on biological children vis-a-vis their relationship with their adopted sibling. However, in order to address those particular concerns, whether I set bond or pretrial services in this matter, it is going to be for the purpose of setting the restrictions. It is going to ensure that there is compliance with the dependency proceedings. That is the court's orders. And are in effect will impact visitations as well as any interaction between the parents as well as the biological children and the adopted child. As to the other factors, this is not a controlled substance issue, and intimidation to victim calls on my previous analysis. Based on the totality of the circumstances, count one remains $100,000. Counts 236 pretrial services, level 2 with a GPS monitor, and special conditions: stay away from the victim, no victim contact. All original conditions bond remain in effect. That is the court's order for counts 2 to 6. Ma'am, would you kindly prepare that order? Ma'am, please do not leave the courtroom. Okay? You are not being taken into custody at this time. However, you will be served by one of the deputies with the cases. Right? Thank you very much.
Then it was Joel Konerk's turn to face the judge.
Special condition: no victim contact. Stay away from the order. Defendant may not have any contact with victims other than person, reporters, and social media. All original conditions are remain in effect. Mr. Miller, please do not leave the courtroom. You will not be taken into custody at this time. However, you will be served by the deputy with the cases. Right? Thank you very much. Right? Mr. Miller, is there anything else on behalf of your client?
I think that's right. Thank you so much.
Have a very good day, Mr. Miller. Thank you very much. Right?
So I'd like to bring in Casey Early. She's a criminal defense attorney in Florida who actually is based in Broward County, where this case is taking place. She's also a candidate for the 22nd House District down there in Florida. Casey, thanks.
Oh, okay. I've seen her before. Okay. I swear to fuck, Florida is fucking up so bad right now. You have actual people who are competent that know how to govern, and you keep electing these fuckwit asshats, maggots. Here is somebody who is running for office that actually could do the job. You know what? I'm going to take a screenshot of this so that way you guys can see what I'm seeing. Let's see. We'll just put this under candidate. Yeah, I'm sick and tired of looking at these. Ugh. All right. That's who's doing the talking right now. This is an interview that's going on between these two people. So this gives you context, kind of. So here we go. Continuing.
So much for coming back on.
Thanks for having me, Internet.
You know, you and I, before we started recording here, we're talking about how horrific these allegations are. We already have a child who's in the system, a foster child, and she was with this family from the time she was a baby, according to what the prosecutors have said. But then
I'm trying to see. Yeah, it's really hard to tell which one is the foster. How old is this foster child now? So this is yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 kids. One of them is the foster child. I guarantee you it's probably this one in the middle. I'm not going to bother with the screenshot because all of their faces are blurred. But yeah, some of these people, I don't know. It's hard to tell. She's 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 kids here. Okay. 5 kids, one of them is 12. So that means 4 of their own biological children. And then the 5th one is the foster child. So, man, these kids are so teeny and they're being encouraged to torture. God damn. Anyway, continue.
Between, I guess, 2023 and 2026, they're saying she was subjected to this awful, awful abuse.
Yeah, these allegations are absolutely horrible, and I do not believe that that is the only time frame that they decided to be monsters. I believe that this has been ongoing. Unfortunately, in this case, we don't have sufficient evidence, and maybe that's why the prosecution decided to just stick with that time frame for purposes of trying this case. But when you hear these allegations of this foster child not only being abused, but her other siblings being subjected to viewing this abuse or participating, it gets even worse. And then to find out that these parents claim to be Christians and they're doing this in the name of religion just blows us out of the water. So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into that. Let's take this first piece of the puzzle. They interviewed the girl. They interviewed the 12-year-old girl.
So she's
over
12.
the course of 2 days back in February. And it says that this girl said that for 2 to 3 years, she had been locked in her bedroom overnight at times during the day, that she was confined overnight. She urinates on herself and at times defecates on herself due to the lack of access to a bathroom. The child reported in the morning she's required to bathe outside in the backyard wearing a bathing suit, despite the weather being not adequate. The biological children also confirmed this information according to what was in the original probable cause affidavit.
Okay, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 kids total, because I'm seeing the same group everywhere. So you've got a older boy and an older girl that they're probably in their upper teens. The 12-year-old foster child is one of the smaller ones, and then you've got the itty bitty ones. So the older kids were encouraged to torture this 12-year-old girl. And remember, the torture didn't start at 12 years of age. It started probably a hell of a lot earlier than that. We know.
A loss here, because even if you have a foster child, Casey, who might be having some issues, who might be acting out, I would think you would have a duty to then take that child to the pediatrician or take that child to a counselor. And we can see if there's something more going on here. Does she have mental health needs?
Of course. And for the viewers, let's back it up a little bit. So we have mom and dad, Jennifer and Joelle, who has this foster child. And over the course of years, not only do they confine her to a room, there's a lock on the outside of the door. She's not allowed to use the restroom. So she would defecate or urinate
That's
on herself.
illegal.
And then in the morning, she's forced to clean it up, take a bath outside. In addition, some of her siblings would witness this on a daily, ongoing basis. And I have the information here. And some of the allegations for the aggravated child abuse included willful torture, malicious punishment, unlawful caging, restricted diet. She wasn't allowed to eat certain foods as her siblings, depriving access not only to the bathroom, but to other parts of the house. But what's even more egregious is that the parents would play this sound noise in her room so she would not have the access to hear what's going on in the outside. So this is beyond
Oh my God. They did this. The U.S. military tortured people that were arrested over in the Middle East in Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib. They would play music as a form of torture. In this case, they were making it so that she couldn't hear what was going on outside of her room. What in the absolute fuck?
Disgusting. Absolute disgusting.
And I guarantee you their social circles are even bigger than the previous family, which seems that they were all shut-ins. But what in the entire goddamn fuck? And no one picked up on it.
extreme torture, which is why she was charged with aggravated child abuse,
We're going into overtime, folks. I don't care.
felony, and they're looking at upwards of 30 years Florida State Prison, and you have neglect of a child, and that's a third-degree felony. I suspect that the prosecution is going all the way. I don't care if these are first-time offenders. You do not treat a child in this manner, whether it's your biological child or a foster child. If you cannot love, care, pour into that child, you should not be a parent. And just like you said, Anjanette, they had many options. If they were afraid that she was stealing or making threats to harm any of the other children, there are avenues that you take. And for Lieutenant Joel, who is Broward Sheriff Office, Lieutenant for the Fire and Rescue Team, obviously he knew better. And this calls into question, do we really know our neighbors? So we pray for those children and the other children as well.
And he lost his job.
For
He's no longer
fuck's
employed,
sake,
with the
I am
Broward-
so sick and tired of hearing people. This is what turns me off to politicians who are running for office, we're praying for this, we're praying for that. Your prayers are doing fuck all. They have done fuck all this entire time. No amount of prayers saved any of those children in the first story or this story. What prayer, what magical incantation can you say would have intervened and stopped what was going on? Why would you need prayer? If the God you pray to is watches all and sees all, how in the fuck is this allowed to continue? Why would God need to hear a prayer before intervening? What in the absolute fuck? Christianity poisons everything, and that is not hyperbole.
County sheriff's, I mean, how could they keep him, right? With these allegations. And of course, he's innocent until proven guilty. These are allegations. But law enforcement is saying the other children backed up what this girl was saying.
Yeah. Listen, as a criminal defense attorney who's tried over 100 trials to verdict, I can just read the probable cause affidavit and know the direction of this case. I don't care what my client tells me. I always tell them, I don't believe you. I believe the evidence and I follow where the evidence takes me. And just as you stated, it's not just the child. Thank goodness that she was homeschooled. This is how it came out. She was homeschooled and then she enrolled into public school and she told someone. If she didn't release this information to anyone, who knows how long this torture could have been going on. So, looking at the problem.
So it wasn't prayer, it was public school that stopped what was happening. That is peak irony. Public school saved this child, not prayer. Wow. I mean, wow.
Cause affidavit and looking at the evidence that the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, this shows that, this is a heavy case against them, whether or not the defense is taking the claim that they're innocent and these are just, erroneous allegations.
And let's look at it from the defense point of view now. Jennifer's defense attorney said in court, basically, oh, she was trying to harm, all the facts will come out. Some of the other children are with people that have a guardian ad litem who might be biased. And he's saying all of these things. But he's claiming, well, she had a school physical. So she had been to the doctor. The school physical doesn't really cut it. As a parent, you're required or supposed to be taking your child to the pediatrician once a year for an actual physical with their pediatrician. A school physical, I don't think cuts it.
This is beyond physical abuse. We're talking about mental abuse, is the social abuse that's been going on. She has been isolated in a room. And then on top of that, all of the torture that she endured. This is going to take years of counseling, mental health counseling specifically, so she can.
I'm looking at these older kids that look like they're in their 15 and 16 years of age. I could be off. None of them seem to have noticed that this was wrong. None of them, as far as we know, none of these kids. Now, hold on. Bear in mind, they are victims too. I am not suggesting that they should have stood up to mom and dad and say enough, but what was going through their minds? What did they think this was normal? Did they think this was okay?
That is not normal and that is not okay. When you have kids or you adopt kids, you are supposed to take care of them. They are dependent on you to take care of them.
Sure, but I'm talking about the kids themselves, the older kids that were not abused but were encouraged to participate. Was there any moment of time where they stopped and just thought to themselves,
they should have,
this is awful, this is wrong, we can't. Yeah. Why is it that we are all here one way? Yeah. The only child in our house is treated entirely different from the rest of us. Something is wrong. These parents are fucking deranged.
And
the parents are fucking deranged.
Yes, they are deranged. Yes, the parents are deranged. And the only way that I can account that the older children thought that this was normal, if they grew up thinking that was normal because of their parents have treated other children like that in front of them as they were growing up. So it grew into the norm for them. So they got
Yeah.
brainwashed into thinking that behavior is okay. You know?
Yeah. I mean, because
That's the only way I can account for
they're
that.
definitely at least 4, maybe even 5 years gap between 12. So what's 12? That's like 16, 17. The son is almost taller than his dad.
So my question is, what child were they abusing before they adopted that 12-year-old girl?
Well,
she wasn't 12 when they adopted her, but how
No,
long
she was
the
2
abuse
months
going
old.
on in the house?
She was when they fostered her, she was 2 months old. So she is a foster child. She is not officially adopted. She is a foster child. She is an in-between. The fact that she stayed in their home, because when I think of fostering, I think of you're holding on to a
temporary
child
placement.
until someone is ready
Temporary
to step in.
placement.
Right.
Yeah, temporary placement.
So she was a foster
so this
child for 12 years. So that tells
They were
me
probably abusing her from the second they got her.
well, no, I'm not. I don't care about the length of time of the abuse. What I care about is the length of time they had her to begin with. So
they should have never had her for
apparently
that long. They shouldn't have had her in the first place.
Well, first of all, if you're a foster parent, that tells me there should be a hierarchy of organizations, social workers, people that are looking in on this child, not just, oh, well, she's over here and that's it. That's that. I mean, the entire state dropped the ball, but it's Florida, of course. Let's continue.
Can unravel what has been going on and to let her know this was not natural. This was not supposed to happen to you. For goodness sake, she's already in the system. And this is why we need social services to continually not only check on the household, especially if you're in the system, but make sure that there's wellness checks.
If there were wellness checks, how did they pass? How did they pass? Were they able to pretend that everything was normal? And then the social worker came in and said, well, everything looks good to me. Bye. See you next time.
Sounds that way.
Check and balance
Sounds
so
that way.
We will not allow this to happen continuously. We are supposed to serve and protect our children. And this, unfortunately,
but it did happen.
It's a surprise. I mean, Coral Springs is a middle-class neighborhood, and we know crime happens everywhere. We don't know what happens behind closed doors. But some of the neighbors had a hunch that maybe something could have been going on in the home. The parents kept her isolated. She wasn't allowed to make any friends, but they did not have enough to report. So we don't want to blame the neighbors for not doing more because it happened behind closed doors.
Yeah, no doubt. There are additional charges that have now been added, Cassia. When the Conants were originally arrested, they were charged with aggravated child abuse. There have been other charges added now, including neglect of a child and also contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And that is because the prosecutors are saying they encouraged their biological children to actually take part in some of this abuse toward the foster sister. So the foster daughter. And I'm like, whoa. So that information, we already know that they interviewed the biological children who confirmed what the foster child said. But they were being encouraged to obviously take part in this abuse according to the charges. And they're all allegations. The Conants have pleaded not guilty. But wow. Yeah. That is very powerful evidence, I think.
It is. And those are the 3 additional charges contributing to a delinquency of a minor, in addition to the neglect of a child and aggravated child abuse. And for cases like this, I pulled up both Joelle and Jennifer's history. We don't see any prior criminal history. Based on my experience, this is how this case is going to go. No prior criminal history. That's a great mitigation for some form of plea resolution. When evidence is so overwhelming, obviously you enter a plea of not guilty initially, and then you start working up the case. You do a demand for discovery, a demand for Brady disclosure. Once you look at all the information, if I had a case like this, we would have a real sit-down meeting with both mom and dad, whether it is a co-defendant attorney, and we tell them the pros and cons, because there's really only 2 choices. You go to trial, evidence like this, you're going to be put away for the rest of your life. Or you evaluate them, give them a mental evaluation, do a comprehensive evaluation, Why did this happen? And then present a mitigation packet to the state. And you're looking at possibly a probation term, or even if it's a county sentence, but a lengthy probation sentence to ensure that they get the treatment that they deserve. But most importantly, take those children out of the home. They do not belong there. There's no form of rehabilitation. You've already tortured them enough. You already abused them psychologically and physically, and you are not fit to be parents. And this should be a lesson to anyone, whether you are a biological parent or a parent seeking to have a child out of the foster care system. If you cannot take care of these children, let someone else do it. There's ways that you can give those children to a loving home, but this cannot be tolerated. And as a prosecutor, I would seek a lengthy term of probation and jail to ensure that we save our children. Their priority.
Yeah, it's just so, the allegations are so disturbing and gross to me, especially because Jennifer was a stay-at-home mom.
Mhm.
So you're a stay-at-home mom and you're taking care of your children, and who knows if her own children will tell tales about not being treated right. But I'm thinking to myself, you're a stay-at-home mom, so basically your job, if you will, is to care for children, being a mother. And this sounds like she failed in more ways than one, according to what the prosecutors are saying.
This sounds like demonic behavior covered under the guise of
Stop blaming demons. Stop blaming the devil. You show me one story in your book of fables and ridiculousness. You show me one story where demons were torturing children like this. One. Show me one. I can give you several instances where God's chosen people were massacring and killing kids. Okay? Putting them to the sword. I can show you passage after passage. Show me where a demon is encouraging a mother to psychologically torture her kids. Stop blaming demons. Stop blaming the devil. Start blaming the God you worship and pray to. Maybe that's the culprit. Did you ever think of that? I am so sick and tired of these people blaming the devil, blaming Satan, blaming demons.
a Christian household. There is no explanation for this. And again, yes, they're innocent until proven.
It was a Christian household. Yes. Maybe the God that they prayed to encouraged this behavior. Isn't it amazing how every Christian, you go from one to the other, to the other, to the other, they all have different opinions on how a household should be led, how children should be treated. And isn't it amazing that they all claim to have direct knowledge of what God wants? You go back 200 years in this country's history, and this would have never seen the light of day. This behavior would have been frowned upon but ignored because, well, it's the parents, we can't interfere.
This sounds like demonic behavior covered under the guise of a Christian household. There is no explanation for this. And again, yes, they're innocent until proven guilty, but oftentimes the evidence speaks louder than the position of the plea that is being entered. You do not say that this is for religious practices. You are not allowed to say that Jesus is king, because Jesus is Lord and Jesus is love. And everything about this case is opposite of that. So,
have you read the Bible lately? Have you read the Old Testament? I know everybody likes to run and bury themselves in the New Testament, and forgetting that the same God that inspired the New Testament inspired the Old, right? I am so tired.
Still using expensive.
Oh, shut the fuck up. I am so sick and tired of people saying, oh, well, I know what Jesus wants. I know what God is.
I think it's absolutely disgusting, especially with kids that are already in the system. You would have thought that they would be doing proper welfare checks to make sure these kids are actually safe, and especially with how vulnerable these kids in the system are. Why are proper checks not being made? Why are proper background checks not being made on people before allowing them to adopt or foster children? I'm dumbfounded. So much for the sort of pro. It is the pro birth crowd, isn't it? Absolutely gross. Something definitely needs to be sorted out. I know you want to finish, but something definitely needs to be sorted out, especially when a fetus has got more rights than a living, breathing child that is suffering. I know you want to end the show, but I just want to end with that.
Yeah, I'm fucked.
Okay. So so I honestly don't know how long my mic has been off, but apparently it disconnected midstream, so I don't know.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Uh-oh is right.
Uh-oh. It'll be right. Your camera's off right now, though.
So yeah, that's it. That But yeah, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the Skeptically Speaking podcast. Thank you for tuning in and not tuning out. And I guess we'll see how bad the damage is. We're going to have to go back and listen to this video and maybe
Fingers crossed.
cut out
It'll
the parts
be okay.
that weren't working. Cut out the parts that are just dead silence.
It'll be okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to support the show, we'd like to do this in full time, not just in our spare time. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you all on the next show.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And child services, get your fingers out your ass and actually get something sorted to make sure welfare is done for these children.
Take care, everybody.
Wake up, grab a brush and put a little makeup. Hide the scars to fade away. Hide the scars to fade away. Why'd you leave the keys up on the table? Here you go, create another fable. You wanted to grab a brush and put a little makeup. You wanted to hide the scars to fade away with a shaker. You wanted to. Why'd you leave the keys up on the table? You wanted to. I don't think you trust